Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the new home for Tactical Review live streams, including constitutional considerations. Here, joined once again by Elias Ward of the Liberty Review podcast. Elias, welcome and welcome back.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. Been a busy few days, and we were going to do this last night, but I forgot about the fact that on a new channel you have to do that 24-hour cooldown. So anyway, looks like we've had at least a couple of viewers who have found us at the new channel. So welcome everybody. As always, jump in the chat and get involved. Well, I'm going to assume that somebody might be chatting because my chat just keeps saying disconnected and reconnected. That's nifty. Thanks, YouTube.
I like the new background.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've been trying to get things again with this being a live stream dedicated channel. So, if you stumble across this video and you're not subscribed to the main channel, that link is down in the description, as well as links to Elias's podcast, his website, Facebook, etc., so on and so forth. And I see that Brownies has found us. Brownies, welcome,
Hey. Bud. So we won't be just talking to ourselves.
Yeah, I still intend to talk to myself a lot.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
So, anyway, Elias, as everybody can see from the title tonight, we are revisiting the subject of pistol braces, and it's been back in the news because here a couple weeks back, as I think probably everybody knows. How you doing, Petey? The ATF sent a cease and desist order to the firearm manufacturer Q for their Honey Badger pistol. And they were basing it on the fact that it did not fit the definition of a pistol. It was instead, in their determination, an illegal short barrel rifle, since it was being sold as a non-NFA item. So, a couple weeks goes by, and here more recently we see that cease and desist has had a 30-day stay put on it. So, Elias, help me out. Does that mean that if somebody wants a Honey Badger pistol right now, that they can now go out and get one while the stay is in place? Or
correct. That's my understanding, is that right now you can still get one. I don't know if they're selling them. Let's see. But yeah, there's a stay, and it means that they cannot. That cease and desist pretty much doesn't exist.
So, Brownies, I'll tell you what. Let me see if I can go dig up the link for you.
The question is, are you going to be able to find one right now? Because everybody's going to be out of stock.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Everybody's going to be trying to get, especially if they want one, yeah.
Yeah. But what Q can do is keep on manufacturing them and hope that they win the case.
Let's see. Firearm Policy Coalition's statement on the cease and desist. Let's see if I've got that. Oh, Brownies got kicked from the stream. How fantastic.
Working for me so far. That's good.
I mean, I got the little spinny doodad in my preview, but it says that I got a good connection. All right. So, for anybody coming into the chat and they're not sure exactly what we're talking about, there's a link if you would like to go take a look. and read up on this. Now, you got a 429 error on that link. Is that what you're saying?
What was that?
Brownie said he got a 429 error. I'm not familiar with that error. Now we get to geek out on HTTP errors.
Yeah, too many requests.
Oh.
So it might be something with his browser.
That could
Not
be.
sure.
That could be. Brownies, you might try. Are you in the app or are you in a browser? So if you're in a browser, you might try closing the tab and reopening it. Anyway, so Q receives a cease and desist. They've been granted a stay. They can manufacture them again. So where are we going from here, do you think, Elias? I mean, because right now I'm feeling pretty prophetic. I meant to go back to last December. Oh, I hit a button. Did I stop anything? I meant to go back to last December and clip the video when I said that they would be coming for pistol braces next.
No. And I think they're going to. And I think what's going to end up hurting, though, is, and you'd be more familiar with this than I will. You know, one of the things I mentioned to you right before we came on is that when I went to go look up, you know, there's a legal definition for short barrel rifle.
Right.
And the legal definition for short barrel rifle is that it is meant to be fired from the shoulder.
Right.
That's included in there. Now, a pistol brace is not meant, it's not supposed to be meant to be fired from the shoulder, but when I went to go look at video and pictures of this, I found only one where somebody was actually using it as a pistol brace. Everywhere else they were using it as a shoulder. And I think that's one of those things where manufacturers are going to try to skirt rules to try to play it off and then be able to say, no, this is actually a pistol brace.
Right.
But what they really did was they're in other words, they're trying to go letter of the law, but completely violate the spirit of the law. And we can, you know, and I think we all agree that the spirit of the law that the law shouldn't exist.
Right.
However, the fact is it does. And so the ATF is going to work within those boundaries, and we have to until we can get something that overturns it. But that's kind of where I'm looking at it as. I think the ATF is going to start cracking down more on this. They're already showing they're cracking down. They're already showing that there's other manufacturers they want to go after.
Right.
And so I think you're going to keep seeing this, and it does not help when the way that they're made and the way they are showcased make them look like they're short barrel rifles.
Right.
That they want to hide them behind and say, no, they're actually pistol braces. If you're going to make it a pistol brace, you probably want to kind of make it more, like, not really encourage people to go and use it as a rifle.
So But the other problem...
And what people do, and it might also be just not even a manufacturer thing. It may just be people being dumb and putting out videos like that. If you're going to do it, fine. But, you know, maybe, yeah, you know what I mean? In all reality, it kind of, you know, self-regulate a little bit so that we can keep ATF off of our backs.
Well, part of the problem, though, is that the ATF has gone back and forth on this, and the current ruling from the ATF is that it's okay to shoulder a pistol brace. Now, one of the things, though, in all of the esoteric rules that hardly anybody can keep track of, when you have a pistol brace on a firearm, the length of pull, which by definition, a pistol brace can't have a length of pull, but we won't get into that rabbit hole. But from the back of the pistol brace at its fully extended position to the face of your trigger cannot exceed 13.5 inches. And that is in an attempt to keep it short enough that it's actually uncomfortable to use as a rifle, which puts you into the position of using it as a pistol. Now here's my question, because the pistol brace is in fact an ADA compliant item. It's meant to be handicap accessibility device.
Right.
So where?
And I think it comes down to what is the intended use. And I think that's, again, where you get into that self-regulation, because if people are acting as if the intended use is firing from the shoulder and the pistol brace is secondary versus it being the other way. And like I said, when I go through and I look through all these videos and I see all these pictures and I find only one using it the correct way,
right.
it can definitely come off as, well, the way we intend you to use it is as a shoulder fired instead of the intended way. And like I said, that's not necessarily just on the manufacturers. I don't know enough about Q to know whether or not in their own videos and material they were showing that off. And if they were, then that's kind of, they probably should rethink their marketing strategy on that one.
Right. Well,
because it's easy to sit there and say, if people are using it incorrectly, say, hey, that's not how we intended. Yeah, they're allowed to use it that way, but that is not our primary intention for it to be used that way. But if, like I said, I don't know their marketing materials or how, but the way it looks, I think to an outsider, it would certainly look like this was meant to be a rifle.
Right.
And the ATF's not an outsider, but if that's what the perception is, then I think that makes an easy case for the ATF to come down on them instead of, like I said, we want to keep the ATF out of our hair.
So, well, another issue though, and something I saw on, I think it was Firearm Policy Coalition's Instagram page today, was they showed a picture of somebody attempting to use it as a brace, and because the little legs are so short, it barely went around that individual's forearm, which I think might be one of the things that spurred the ATF investigation.
Yeah.
But the problem is that if Q would have made that any taller so that the arms would wrap around the forearm better, then the ATF technology department wouldn't have passed it as a pistol brace because they would have said it's too tall. It's obviously intended to be used as a stock.
Right.
So I think, and if Q is pursuing legal avenue behind this, that tells me that probably they have communications from the ATF technology department that we haven't been made privy to yet.
And that's kind of what we were talking about. One of the things that really kind of gets me feeling as if there's more to this story is the fact that the DOJ muzzled the ATF during the production.
Right.
They didn't allow it to stop, but then they're allowing enforcement to go in. And to me, that really just, something doesn't jive up with me there. Either the ATF was lied to, or by somebody, or this was a setup. And the question is why? And why now?
Right.
Right before the election, the ATF starts doing things like this.
Well, I'm going to just go ahead and say,
after months of saying they weren't going to do anything and pistol braces were fine and they weren't going to touch them, why is it that a month before the election they start doing it? And that's where, when you start lining all these different things up, something doesn't sit right.
Like maybe the outcome of the election has already been determined and they're, oh wait, no, we're not allowed to.
That would never happen in our country. Just because we do that in other countries, we would never do that here.
But seriously though, it bothers me, just like, once again, just 10 months ago or so, when we were talking about the Franklin Armory Reformation,
yeah,
and the Origin SBV. We've got items that have gone into full manufacture. I realize that businesses aren't individuals and as such don't have access to the Bill of Rights. But how does this not fall under something similar to like an illegal seizure? You know what I'm saying?
Well, see, now that would be an interesting case because according to the Supreme Court, corporations are people. Well, at least when it comes to giving money to legislators, their people. So to me, that would mean that the Bill of Rights does apply to them.
And if that's the case, then how does this not run afoul of?
Well, they didn't seize anything, did they? I thought they just told them stop selling them.
Well, but then.
So it's not really a seizure.
But what's the next
step? It does fall under it would fall under the Commerce Act. It would fall under the congressional power for commerce.
I mean, for items already in circulation.
See, I haven't seen that. Have they said that? Well, yeah, that happened with Franklin.
Yeah, I mean,
but I don't know how much. I don't think they did any enforcement of it. Enforcement of it is going to be very, very difficult.
Well, yeah, I myself have multiple rifle pattern pistols.
And I do know there's case law. See, I didn't know you were going to go this route. I would have looked it up. I do know there's case law for when something goes from illegal to illegal. The government's limited on what they can actually do because at the time that it was purchased, it was a legal firearm.
Right.
By the ATF's rules. The ATF hadn't flipped on it yet. So I don't know the exact case law, but I know there have been cases where the government has ruled in favor of the individual saying, hey, when he purchased that was a legal firearm. That was not a firearm, but that was a legal purchase. You can't hit him for that. He just can't buy another one, and they can never transfer it to anybody else.
Right. But then on a non-serialized item, good luck proving that. You know what I'm saying?
It's the same reason why. Actually, it's the same reason why. Who was it? Who was that fool down in Texas who said that he was going to ban or he was going to buy back firearms? Beto, and even CNN was going, how are you going to do that? You can't legally take them away from them. He goes, well, we're just going to do it. And he's like, well, how are you going to do it? Well, people will do it. People will turn it in. If we make it illegal, people will turn it in. And it was kind of funny because one of the more, there was a liberal commentator somewhere saying, just like the fact, bringing up that Beto's DUI, saying just like DUI is also illegal, right. And you didn't do that either, right? But even the more liberal side looked at it and said, you can't, even if you banned assault weapons, there was no way that he was going to be able to force people to turn in firearms that they had purchased legally. It's the same reason why when they did the assault weapon ban in the 90s, they could not take away what people had already purchased. They can ban sales of it going further, which is why there was a run on all those firearms right before the ban set. But they couldn't take it away. And the same thing when Beto was saying, we're going to do it. And even CNN is going, you can't do that.
Right.
I imagine it would be the same thing here. And even if, the ATF actually did all the work to find out who owns them all, which that's a very time consuming process. Since they can't the database isn't searchable. It's a very time consuming process. I think it would be an easy court case for an individual to win because when they purchased it by ATF certification, it was a legal firearm purchase. So I think that what they were trying to do was rattle some cages and hoping that people would just do it.
Right.
But again, it shows really the bureaucracy and just how bad it is up there when they can't even, their two divisions can't get together.
Right. And I'd be curious for SB Tactical to come out and make any kind of statement on this. Whether or not they've received any kind of similar cease and desist or because when that came out, my first thought was, okay, they're coming for all rifle pattern pistols.
Mm-hmm.
But then the very next day, I get an email from Palmetto State Armory, and they've got like 5 different AR and AK pistols on the daily deal. So, it's unfortunately, number one, I wish I was more surprised than what I was. But I guess it wasn't quite. I just think that we're looking at just more paper cuts towards our death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah. I would really be interested in seeing. I mean, I hope this doesn't happen to anybody, but I really would be interested to see the case when ATF tries to hit somebody with possession of a short barrel rifle when the fact is that when they bought it, it was not considered a short barrel rifle. That'd be a very interesting case, I think.
Yeah.
Because you can sit there and say, if it's already been classified as a short barrel rifle, then okay, you've got a case at that point. But what about the fact that you can prove that you bought it and at that time the ATF has said, yep, it's okay, go for it.
Yeah. And even if they start cracking down again on shouldering a pistol brace, you can still cheek weld that. And so you still have that situation that 3 points of contact is more stable than 2. So,
right.
Which is the whole reason I purchased AR pistol. I mean, I legitimately thought through and purchased an AR pistol as a defensive weapon after researching ballistics and all sorts of other things, because it's a handy package. And realistically, when you look at overall lethality, you actually reduce the lethality of a rifle when you reduce the barrel to those lengths. So
correct, but it's not about reducing the lethality. It's about reducing it's about increasing the concealability.
Right. Which, even at that,
the funny thing is you probably do much more damage with a handgun.
That's what the FBI homicide statistics indicate. But
yep.
You know, what do I know? I
was getting that with that.
I just read numbers.
And that's where I was going with that. Yeah, and that's where I was going with it, is that most crimes are done by handguns, which, interestingly enough, even the Democrats don't want to get rid of handguns.
Well, they say.
Oh, no. I mean, if you, in all reality, most Democrats still don't want to, a lot of Democrats, you always have your extremes.
Right.
But most of them don't even want to get rid of handguns.
Well, again, right now. But what happens when, worst case scenario, they win and get all of the things they want, and they get rid of all of these scary firearms, and then, surprise Pikachu, violent crime doesn't change because those aren't being used in violent crimes.
What I would be really interested in is gauging Democrat legislators to figure out where they really sit. Because, again, you always have the thing of the vocal majority.
Right.
And rifles are the easy target. And it's really easy to get people on board who maybe don't really have a problem with firearms. So if I were to paint a picture, let's say that you've got a decent group of Democrats, decent group of liberals, who really don't think firearms are that big of a deal. For instance, during the Obama administration, he had Democrat-controlled House and a Democrat supermajority in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
They could have passed any firearm bill they wanted to. They didn't. They didn't pass even one that entire time. So my wondering is, how many Democrats are actually just sitting there, don't really care? They don't think it's that big of a deal. But there's enough pressure from the very influential ones that really want assault weapons banned.
Mm-hmm.
We'll call them assault weapons. I'm just going to use their definition. It's really easy to play to emotions.
Right.
It's harder to play to the emotions of the handguns, or they see the benefit of the handguns too well to really be influenced. Now, I'm not saying you're wrong. I think that it's a thing that as time goes, they can start influencing it.
Right.
But I think it would take a while, certainly longer than 2 years, for it to get influenced. Yeah, I think so. I think they could get. The question is, I don't even know if they can get another assault weapons ban through at this point. They couldn't do it in that time period, and I don't know if they can do it now. Especially with all the interesting thing is, I think what they ended up kind of screwing themselves in a way, because the riots and stuff actually pushed more liberals to go buy firearms.
Right.
So I think right now might actually be a harder time for them to push through than it would have been, 6-7 years ago, because they're realizing how important it is to be able to defend yourself right now against, whether they want to say it's defending themselves against the right or the very far left. I think right now they may even have a hard time passing something
Right.
At least not without a sunset. However, I do think it's going to be a really good time to what do you call it? I'm not a financial advisor and don't take anything I say, but I will say if Biden wins, you know, stocks in firearm companies may start jumping up because people are going to start panic buying.
Start.
Yeah, I'll go with we haven't seen anything yet.
No, I would agree with that.
Because people will start worrying about that.
Because as it is, I can still go find firearms on the shelf in places, and
Right.
we will get to the point. And there's places that are like this, that what's on the shelf is, either the very expensive boutique stuff
Mhm.
or the stuff that is really just garbage.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, somebody's going to go in with a legitimate need to protect themselves and be forced to make that
It's gonna be
choice.
different. Yeah. And that's, but yeah, I think handguns will be okay for a while, and I really think that right now rifles are going to be okay. I know Biden has his things that he wants to do and stuff like that, but the fact of the matter is he doesn't get to determine legislation.
Well, unless he just, follows the example that's been set, continues legislating by executive fiat.
Right. Well, and that's one of those things that I'm not sure that the Supreme Court's really gonna let him get away with too much of that. I mean, even Obama, when he realized he wasn't going to get anything passed through Congress, because at that point, by the time he decided he was going to try to do anything, he was seen at that point as very politically weak.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to try to do some things via EO, and his lawyers told him, don't even bother, because it'll get struck down before the ink dries. So that's kind of the hope. But who knows? Trump, like everybody before him, has really expanded the power of the presidency. So
Right, and I really, something I was going to say earlier, I feel like the ATF has really been emboldened by Trump's pinstroke to ban bump stocks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a fantastic example of, what is it, the 6th or 7th Amendment violation. Basically says that if the government's going to require you to give up your assets, that you have to be compensated.
I think that's the 6th due process.
Yeah, I think. Anyway, and that was just because the bump stocks were destroy it, melt it down, get rid of it. You're not allowed to have it, and that was that all happened before I owned my AR. I really wasn't paying any attention. But I seem to recall those costed a couple $100. So, but even if it was just $50, I mean, $50 is $50.
Out 5.
Dude.
It's under the 5th.
Okay.
Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation.
Well, now maybe that's where it wasn't considered a constitutional violation, because it wasn't taken for public use. It was, unless you want to say, I guess you could argue that the public use was because it's supposedly for public safety.
Might be the case. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. I don't know the Constitution law well enough to say one way or the other. I mean, I could just do what everybody else does these days and just randomly tell you something.
Yeah, might as well. It's as good of advice as anybody get anyplace else.
It was a violation of the Second Amendment.
Absolutely.
Third first, and I'm pretty sure Article 3.
Well, and
the judiciary.
It's just like, though, we've talked before about red flag laws. Red flag laws violate 60% of the Bill of Rights in one fell swoop.
Correct. It's a violation of due process, which, by the way, for all the people who constantly want to think Republicans are the good guys, Trump supports red flag laws, and so do a lot of Republicans in Congress.
Absolutely.
So,
and
I've beat on this drum before, and I'll say it again. One party is not better than the other. Neither of them care about your rights.
Right. So, but that's a good segue.
Vote for the meteor strike.
Right.
That's the only chance we have.
Meteor strike 2020. Yes, because the
Vote
candidate,
for COVID.
the candidate that no, I want to vote out COVID. No, the candidate that I was super excited about and I thought was kind of a breath of fresh air. It turns out that air is a little danker than what I thought.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but we were talking about Supreme Court and how they would react to an attempt at executive orders. So, what are your thoughts on the full Senate vote for Barrett?
I'm not really surprised. I told you yesterday that she has a really she was fast. She has a very quick. Apparently, I can't put links. I thought I could do links.
Oh, it's a new channel, bud.
Oh, it's a new channel. You haven't made me special in there yet.
Correct.
I said it was a very fast promotion. 3 years ago, she was a professor that nobody knew. And now she's about to sit on the Supreme Court.
So how did she go from being unknown to catching the president's eye?
I am not really sure. I mean, she's a law professor. She's done a bunch of talks. She clerked for Scalia. And that possibly could have been one of those things that really helped her, is that she clerked for him. She obviously was well known by somebody in whoever needed to know. But I'm not really sure how she got on the president's radar like that. Well, let me rephrase that. The president never actually selects the Supreme Court nominee. Some advisors of his somewhere knew about her. You know what I mean? It's like, you know that the president never really knows who these people are a lot of times.
Right.
But I'm not really sure what she has done. Looking really quick to see if I can find anything on her. Oh, you know what? I know how she caught people's eye. If I remember right, she was actually involved with the Bush-Gore lawsuit.
Okay.
You know what? And yeah. And with a president who thinks that the Supreme Court is going to be what bails him out for the election, I wonder if that's what really helped her.
Could be.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, she actually was practicing law with the law firm that represented George Bush.
Gotcha.
In the election lawsuit. Yeah. I'll bet you anything that's how she ended up so well known by the president, or by the party, I should say, because the party is probably who told him who to nominate.
Right.
So, I mean, she seems somewhat qualified. She seems like she knows what she's doing. She's an originalist, which I think is a good thing.
Right.
For anybody who doesn't know, originalist is pretty much somebody who looks at the Constitution and doesn't say the meaning changes over time. They say the meaning is the meaning. And if you need to change the meaning, then you do it through amendments. If only they had given some way to do that.
That feels right.
Yeah. So I like that about her. It's really hard to tell from her nomination how she's going to be, because in all reality, the Republicans were throwing extremely soft pitches at her on purpose. The Democrats were hitting her hard with an agenda. And the ones who were expected to hit her the hardest were actually going, the Democratic Party were actually going the softest because they're up for election. Like Feinstein was pretty much hardly said anything.
Right.
Interestingly enough, Senator Kamala Harris was just made absolutely no sense. In fact, Justice Barrett actually said at one point, she goes, "Where are you going with this?" And then they start going on about the Affordable Care Act and little Johnny, who has asthma, will no longer be covered, and just really went into the emotional side. And Democrats just did a horrible job with that. So it's really hard to actually tell where she stands and what she'll be like. And they were definitely out for an agenda. And, you know, they also had the agenda of trying to figure out, well, how are you going to rule in this case, in this case? Well, these are things that are ongoing litigation.
Right. And didn't she specifically
say... And so she's not going to... Yeah, she's like, I'm not going to answer that. You're asking me hypotheticals, and I don't have the facts of the case. Which, interestingly enough, is something that she pulled out of Ginsburg's book. When Ginsburg was up for nomination by President Clinton, the Republicans did that to her.
Okay.
And she answered the same way that Ginsburg did. So the downside of that is we really don't have a clear picture. She's only been a judge for 3 years.
Right.
She does not have a long history, which, that's the kind of thing that really makes me nervous. I personally don't like her age. I don't like the fact that she's only 40 years old. Here's somebody who's going to be sitting on the bench for the next 50, 60 years.
Right.
It's probably not 60 years, but 40, 50 years. So, but, overall, if she is how she seems, I think she'll be a good justice. But it's really hard to tell.
Right.
And I don't know how I feel about the court being stacked in one way or the other. I kind of like it being even with one wild card.
Well,
even if I don't always like how the wild card goes, I kind of like it because, yeah.
That goes back, though, to what we discussed here several weeks back. And that is that R or that D or even an L next to a justice's name shouldn't make
a bad thing.
Well, it shouldn't make any difference because, I mean, sure, maybe that might determine how they vote on their own personal ballot for,
Well, and that's supposed to be the whole idea of why you don't see L and R next to a Supreme Court justice's name.
Right. So it shouldn't matter.
They're usually known between as more conservative, more liberal. But they don't have something. And what's interesting, though, is you can actually see some justices that change over time.
Right.
Kennedy changed a little bit over time. Stevens, the Chief Justice before, I think it was the one right before Roberts, who was appointed by Reagan, I believe. But over time, he became more liberal. And you'll see some liberal ones that start to kind of go the other way. And it's really, I find it really interesting to see that kind of, but that's what you want.
Right.
Because the fact is, the justice is supposed to just look at the law and say this or that. And that's it. And that's supposed to be personal opinion of how I feel about the situation or anything to that matter.
Yeah, there's a whole lot that I don't have to like it for me to say the government doesn't have any business. And that's something that I've really I think I've mentioned this before, that I've come to this self-realization over the last 18 months or so. I can be strongly morally opposed to something and yet still say, but the government doesn't have any business.
Right. It's kind of where the idea behind it, this is what Justice Barrett said, was that she has her personal opinions and she has her faith. But when she's sitting in that seat, her job is to say, what is the law?
Right.
Not how do I feel about this? I may be morally opposed to this, but what is the law? And that's it. It's not her job. She even told him at one point, she said, this is your job to make policy and laws, not mine.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to look at the case in front of me, look at the facts, look at what the law says, and judge it based on that, not based on whether I think it's a good idea or a bad idea. That's your job, not mine.
Right.
And, when they were asking her for her opinion, this is where I think she did really well. When they were asking her, well, what's your opinion on this? She goes, it's irrelevant what my opinion is.
Right.
My job is to judge the case, not to give opinions. That's your job. And she even says, she goes, I don't think we want justices legislating.
Oh, absolutely.
She goes, I don't want that and you don't want that. So, So I think it's supposed to go to the full floor on Monday. I think it passed out of committee today and then full floor vote on Monday.
Yes.
So I expect it to win. There's a couple Republicans that are a little bit flaky, but according to the majority leader, they have the votes. So all they need is 50.
And I think Barrett actually did a decent job of convincing even some more centrist, some more traditional Democrats.
Yeah.
Who were...
No Democrat is going to... I don't think any Democrat will vote for her, not in an election year.
Right.
Because their party will skewer them at this point. But I do think that she has the respect of several, not just legislators, but even outside of Congress. She has had left-leaning individuals who have said she's qualified for the job.
Right.
So unfortunately for her, it just came at a very bad time.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that there's anything else we can hash over on the pistol braces right now without some more information.
No, but I do want to use the pistol braces as a really interesting thing I found out today.
Okay.
That I'm really surprised nobody, or if they've used it in a court case, I can't find it. 1930s.
Okay.
There's a case, went to the Supreme Court, United States v. Miller. Miller was a guy down in Arkansas who got busted, as it were, for taking a short-barreled shotgun or sawed-off shotgun across state lines.
Mm-hmm.
And the local court, the district court, found him guilty, said it was under the Commerce Clause and under all that kind of stuff that they can regulate that stuff.
Right.
The circuit court overturned it and said, nope, that section is unconstitutional, violation of the Second Amendment. We're getting rid of it. Nope. Went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court unanimously ruled in favor of the government. The interesting thing about the case is that the reason they said that they ruled for them is they said that the Second Amendment talked about militia and firearms, and they said a sawed-off shotgun was not a firearm that was normally in the use of militaries. Now, I also want to say that his lawyer never got to actually plead their case in front of the Supreme Court. Only the government did.
Gotcha.
Due to financial issues and some other issues, they could not get to Washington, D.C. to try the case, to present his side of it. So they only heard the government side. But I still think it's a really interesting ruling saying that because it wasn't something a military normally used. And so to me, it seems like what they were saying was, well, if this was something that the military did normally use, then yes, of course he would be allowed to have it and you wouldn't be able to restrict him. So, and that's where I asked you before, where's my saw?
Right.
Because to me, what they were saying was, something that's in the normal military use, like a saw, is something that is protected by the Second Amendment. So
right, which well actually
this is kind of an interesting little thing for today. Doesn't really have a lot of bearing, but
that could work in the favor of Q though, based on the fact that the honey badger was originally designed as a special forces weapon.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. I mean, and yeah, they might end up using. I mean, we're seeing some interesting cases right now using some. Like for instance, with the kid from Illinois,
right,
in Wisconsin, Rittenhouse, where his lawyers are arguing that at 17 he is legally part of the unregulated militia and therefore is allowed to have a firearm per U.S. law.
Right.
So I mean, if you get the right lawyers who can figure out how to argue that case, it'd be interesting to see, how they would be able to do it. So. Where is it? I want to see what the summary was, how the way they wrote it.
Well, while you're looking that up, and by the way, I did make you a moderator. You can drop a link in the chat if you need to.
Okay.
I do want to thank everybody who's joined us. Remind you, if you happen to have not hit that thumbs up, that absolutely helps the channel out. Helps out every creator when you're doing that. And go ahead and subscribe here if you want notifications of when we're starting a new stream. And if you're not subbed to the original channel and you're interested in guns and gear and reviews thereof, I've got a link to the main channel down in the description. It's youtube.com/c/tactical review. Make sure you head over there and sub to the main channel as well. While you're at it, if you would like to help support the channel, you can head over to the Teespring store and get yourself some merchandise, and every purchase will help the channel out with a few dollars of revenue. We have some great t-shirts, and we now have the channel logo, the full color channel logo on a hoodie. So grab you one of those and keep yourself warm through these winter months. If you would like to help support the channel directly, you can do that over on Patreon or on Subscribestar. Those links are down in the description, and of course then that supports the channel very directly. Or if you want to help support the channel, you can do so by helping support our sponsor. You see down or there on the screen that we have partnered with Freedom Reloads and Arms in Linden, Indiana. So you can check him out on Facebook, and if you're over in the Linden area, swing by his shop. He's got all sorts of really focuses on reloading, but he does have some firearms on shelf, targets and things like that. Whether you hit him up on social media or in person, make sure to let him know that Tactical Review sent you.
Yeah, I saw that you had that on there.
Yeah.
Very nice.
It was a really great time getting over there and getting to meet Skylar. Really pretty awesome shop, and if you have any questions about reloading, I question whether you're going to find somebody more knowledgeable.
Very nice.
Yeah, Elias, that meme was, yeah, super appropriate. Yeah, brownies. Yep. So if you're coming through Indiana, make sure you swing down and check out Freedom Reloads and Arms. And then I'm sure that everybody who's watching right now, you found out about the stream through social media. But if you guys come across this later on, make sure you follow the channel over on social media, Tactical Review 2019 on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, Elias's links are down in the description, so make sure you go follow him on Facebook and subscribe to the podcast anywhere that you consume podcasts so that you see when he uploads new podcasts. Well, guys, it's a little bit of a short one tonight, but it was good to be back on with you guys. Elias, I don't want to close out without giving you another word. What's the good word, my friend?
Oh, I did find that, Cork. I wanted to... This was the part of it. It says, it is within judicial notice that this weapon is not any part of ordinary military equipment or that it could contribute to the common defense. And then they go through defining militias and the fact that, just different things from the framers. Talking, here's like one quote, a body of citizens enrolled for military discipline, and talking about military force and that they should have military equipment. So that's where I was kind of trying to find exactly what that line was the fact that they actually noticed and said, hey, this particular weapon is not used in the military, so therefore it's not protected, which to me says that means military weapons are protected under the Second Amendment.
Correct.
So that was it. I found that interesting. I thought others might find that interesting too.
Yeah, legitimately, I think that maybe we should get some contact information for Q and forward that to them. Just point out, hey, I'm sure you guys have amazing lawyers, but this might have bearing on the case.
Yeah.
So, and who
precedent? That's all they've been talking about lately is precedent.
Well, but here, so my thing is that with them so emphatically stating that military weapons are what was protected by the Second Amendment, why did they not just repeal the NFA at that point?
The NFA was upheld initially because the tax stamps were upheld as the government has the power to levy taxes and they can regulate interstate commerce. So it's kind of that thing of where if the court can, this is one of the things they were talking a lot with about Barrett is whether or not when things can be is severability. You can't necessarily strike down the entire law. The court is supposed to just look at what they've been asked to look at, and that's it.
Right.
So in the end, the Supreme Court ruled that it was legal, so that was it. That's the end of it. They don't go looking at everything else that was banned or anything like that. They just look at what are we been asked to look at, because anything more gets more into legislation.
Gotcha.
Of the legislating from the bench. So, which again, we don't want them doing.
Correct. Well, we can say
we just
that,
need to get better people in office.
well, and that's one of the, it's a slippery slope thing, because you're absolutely right. We don't want them doing that, because just because at this moment maybe conservatives do want this group of justices doing that, we don't want that precedent set. So,
Right.
Anyway, guys, thanks for joining. It actually is 10 till 10, so we're gonna try to get one next week. We have a subject matter that I think that it's, well, number one, it'll be very timely for the, hopefully Wednesday. I'm going to plan for Wednesday next week, but it'll be very timely for the Wednesday before the election, and I'm hoping to have a surprise for you guys, but I'm not holding my breath either. So Elias knows what that intended surprise is, and I'm going to keep it completely under my hat until I have more information. So, but thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you for supporting now both channels, and I look forward to producing many, many more videos and interacting with you guys a lot more. Guys, until next time, make sure that you always shoot straight and stay safe.